So the other day I did a side-by-side swatch comparison of these two products right here. It's the new e.l.f. Halo Glow Blush in the shade Rose You Slay, and then Charlotte Tilbury's infamous Pinkgasm. Today I'm going to put it to the test on my cheeks. I'm going to put e.l.f. on this side and Charlotte Tilbury on this side and see if we can spot a difference. I'm also going to try out the e.l.f. contour as well. I'm not going to do a side-by-side comparison though, because I have the Charlotte Tilbury in the darkest contour shade, and I already know these products are not going to be a match, and I'm going to be walking around looking crazy. So I will do a swatch comparison of the shades on my hand. I wasn't exactly sure what shade to get. I agonized over what shade to get. I felt like the lightest one, I really loved the true contour color and how gray toned it was and cool toned it was, but I just knew it was going to be way too light for me. For color reference, if you're familiar with Danessa Myricks foundations at all, I'm in the shade N4. So I decided to play it safe. I went with the second shade. I was torn between the second or the third shade. I believe it's called medium tan, but I went with light medium. So I have not tried this yet. I haven't even swatched it yet. So I'm going to be trying it today. I'm going to do a wear test as well with this product, but I'm going to be comparing these two products right here in a side-by-side. I'm just going to swatch it one more time in case you missed that video. So that is the Charlotte Tilbury. This comes out a little bit differently than the Charlotte Tilbury's does. But as you can see, they're very close. In my opinion, the e.l.f., at least in person, comes off a little bit more peachy than the Charlotte Tilbury does. That one to me is a little bit more pink in tone. Also, the Charlotte Tilbury is a little bit of a thicker formula and a little bit more creamy, whereas the e.l.f. is a little bit of a thinner formula, and it comes off just a tiny bit patchy, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will be patchy on my face. It's just coming off that way on my swatch. So packaging differences, obviously the Charlotte Tilbury is much bigger in size. You do get a little bit more product in here. You get 0.40 fluid ounces and you get 0.33 fluid ounces with the e.l.f. But when you're comparing $42 versus $9, that's not that big of a size difference. And then also the cap just kind of pops off. There's a locking mechanism with this where you turn it and lock the product, or when you want to get some of the product out, you unlock it and it'll come out more freely. So it just helps it be a little less messy, but it still is a little messy even with that locking mechanism, and I always lock mine. With the e.l.f., there's a screw cap, which I actually prefer because I feel like my Charlotte Tilbury pops off sometimes and can get a little messy. This one does not have the locking mechanism. You just kind of squeeze it out. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the contour first. So you just kind of squeeze the product up like that, very similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. And again, like I said, I knew it was not going to be a shade match with the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light wand that I have, but I will do a swatch comparison just on my hand. So there you go. That is the light medium. And I do think that will probably work for me. If it's not a true contour, it will work more like a bronzer for me. And then I have the shade medium deep in Charlotte Tilbury. And I believe this only comes in 2 colors, and I believe this is the darkest shade. So there you go. As you can see, my Charlotte Tilbury is much deeper in tone than the e.l.f. is. So I'm not going to do a side-by-side on my face because I just feel like it's not going to be a true test, but I am going to use the e.l.f. contour today and just wear it and just see how it wears, because I use the Charlotte Tilbury every single day. So I kind of have a good idea of how it wears. It wears really well throughout the day. I don't have problems with it wearing off or anything like that. So I am curious to see if the e.l.f. holds up as well as the Charlotte Tilbury does. So I'm just going to put the same dots that I would do with the Charlotte Tilbury, just like that. It's really pretty. I actually really like this shade. I feel like it's very subtle, but like it gets the job done. But to me, the e.l.f. is just a little bit more pigmented, where you get a little bit more color payoff. So that's why I was a little bit intimidated by going to the next shade up versus the Charlotte Tilbury really sheers out. And I feel like you could be really fair and buy the darkest shade and it still can work for you with the Charlotte Tilbury, versus the e.l.f. is a little bit more intense in shade. So I wanted to be a little bit more conservative and get the lighter shade. And I'm really glad that I did, because I really, really like this color so far. I really do think this is like the perfect shade for me. So I'm really glad that I decided on this one. And then I am going to do a little bit of a nose contour. I usually do with the Charlotte Tilbury, and I'm just curious how this one does on me. I'm actually really pleasantly surprised by this shade. It looked really, really warm when I was seeing it on some people online, and I was a little intimidated by that because I definitely did not want something super duper warm. I did want a contour kind of shade, and this is actually not quite as warm as I thought it was going to be. So I'm very pleasantly surprised by that. Okay, I'm loving this contour shade. Like I am so like I was going in this with zero expectations. I thought it was going to be really warm. I thought it was going to be more just like of a bronzer shade. But I really, for me and my skin tone, I do feel like it's a great hybrid of a bronzer contour together. So if you're kind of in a rush and you want that two-step process, I do feel like that with the Charlotte Tilbury too. I feel like I can get away with this being a bronzer and a contour. So I don't always feel like I need to add bronzer after using this. And I kind of feel the same way with this e.l.f. I'm really pleasantly surprised. I thought if I got the lightest shade, it would be just strictly a contour and that's it. And then this shade was going to be more of a bronzer on me. But I really do feel like this is a true contour and bronzer together. So I'm very impressed. Normally, what I go in with my blush, I always go in with nude sticks. It's kind of like a hybrid between a bronzer and a blush. But for the sake of seeing the true color today, I'm just going to go in with the blush and try it out. Right, I don't know if you can see that, but like it really like bubbles out. It almost seems like a thicker formula than the Charlotte Tilbury, but on the skin it feels thinner. But the way it comes out is thicker. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but when I squeeze out this one, it's like it just comes out more evenly distributed than this. Like, so I just wanted to point that out. All right, so I'm just gonna do 3 dots, and I've heard that this sets really quickly, so I'm going to try to blend this in very fast. I'm gonna do just like a little bit more. It's very pretty. It definitely doubles as a highlight, which I really love that. All right, now I'm gonna do the Charlotte Tilbury. I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit messy. I don't even think I need to squeeze any out on here. I'm just gonna grab a different brush, very similar to the brushes that I'm using. Just gonna do a little bit more, just like I did on this side. And kind of just check it out myself. I mean, honestly, I don't see a difference when I'm looking in person. It looks very similar to me. And for some reason, I'm just liking the way the e.l.f. is hitting actually a little bit more than the Charlotte side. I almost feel like the Charlotte Tilbury kind of removed my foundation, and that is a little bit of a problem that I have with the blush, and I don't always use it on its own. I usually use this blush as a topper because anytime I use it kind of by itself, I just feel like it pulls product. Does anyone else have that problem? Maybe it's user error, but I just feel like it kind of like shears out. I have a little tiny bit of a blemish right there, and I just feel like you can see it again all of a sudden. Versus the e.l.f., I don't feel like it kind of grabbed that product off my face. So I'm actually liking the e.l.f. side a little bit better. But I don't know. I mean, I've been a true fan of Charlotte Tilbury for so long, and I religiously buy her beauty wands. Like I buy these over and over, but I don't know. They may have converted me. When it comes to the flawless filter, I'm converted to the e.l.f. side because I can see no difference between these products here. I have a shade that's a little bit too light for me right now. It's shade 2 in the Charlotte Tilbury, and this is shade 3, I believe, in the e.l.f. Yes, I have shade 3 in the e.l.f. So this is more of a true color match for me right now, so I do reach for it a lot more. But as in terms of the glow and everything, and the coverage, I cannot see a difference between these two products. So I've already been converted when it comes to the flawless filter. And I think I've just been converted when it comes to the blush and the contour too. So you be the judge, but I'm very thrilled with these products right now.